Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for our Northwestern All Things Pre-Health panel. My name is Jordan, and I will be moderating this evening. And first, I'm going to have our wonderful student panelists introduce themselves, and then I'll give an overview of how this will work. So Elizabeth, why don't you go ahead?
Yes, thank you, Jordan. Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Bernstein. I'm a recent graduate of Northwestern. I studied neuroscience and psychology in the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences on the pre-med track. While I was at Northwestern, I did 2 summers of research. One of those summers, I received an undergraduate research grant. I volunteered at Lurie Children's Hospital, and I was also the co-director of an organization called Camp Kesem for the past year. And I'm really excited to be chatting with all of you today, and I will pass it off to Katherine.
Hi guys, I am a rising 4th year here at Northwestern. I'm actually from Evanston, Illinois, so I'm very local. And I study learning and organizational change, which is a major in the School of Education and Social Policy, with a minor in chemistry. And I'm also on the pre-health track here. And then when I'm not tour guiding, I also volunteer at Lurie's, but I really love my research that I do here, which is in a Neuro Psych Lab. Oh, sorry. Jack, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jack. I'm a rising junior, and I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I use he, him, his pronouns. And when I'm, I'm a biological sciences major as well as a theater major. And then I have a musical theater certificate that I'm part of as well. And I'm also on the pre-med track. And when I'm not busy working for the admissions office, I take part, I'm part of Northwestern's iGEM team, which is an international synthetic biology competition where we genetically engineer cells to do specific tasks. It's very cool. And I'll pass it off to Vivica.
Yeah, you said it right. Hi, I'm Vivica. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a rising sophomore. I'm a double major in sociology and global health studies and pre-health, pre-public health. And I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So it's pretty close to campus. I love the Midwest. And on campus, one of my favorite things I get to do is I'm the co-president of Peer Health Exchange, which is a national organization that allows college students to volunteer to be health teachers at high schools.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. So like I mentioned, my name's Jordan, and I'm actually a graduate student at Northwestern. I am pursuing my master's in science in higher education administration and policy from the School of Education and Social Policy. It's a lot of words. I am also an admissions counselor in the office and will be moderating the panel today. So how this is going to work is feel free to type your questions in the chat, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. And rest assured, at the end, we'll share some info on if your question wasn't answered, ways and resources to get it answered. So to start, I thought it'd be really helpful to just talk about what does it mean to be pre-health? Is pre-health a major? Does that mean I'm going to be a doctor? And all the different definitions of it that you can find at Northwestern. So Elizabeth, can you kind of provide us with that foundation?
Yes, happy to. So like Jordan said, there are kind of some common questions and common myths that go around about what it really does mean to be pre-health. I didn't include this in my introduction, but after Northwestern, I'm actually going to be working in consulting for life sciences and healthcare at Accenture. And then I'll be coming back to Northwestern to attend the Kellogg School of Management for my MBA. So that is all happening, even just with the fact that I was pre-med or pre-health. So all that really means is it is a set of classes that you will be taking during your time at Northwestern, should you opt into that would potentially give you the opportunity to pursue certain postgraduate opportunities. So for example, as a pre-med student or pre-health overall, you would likely be taking a solid set of chemistry, organic chemistry, biology, physics, as well as a few different calculus, statistics, psychology, and associated classes. That does not mean that you have to be a doctor or that you have to go to medical school after you graduate from Northwestern. While that is definitely an option and definitely a path that many students will choose to pursue. As you likely saw, even just from our introductions, we are all studying very different things. Jack is a theater major in our School of Communications. Katherine's in our School of Education and Social Policy. So being pre-health or pre-med and on that track is not a major, and it is not something standalone. So it is something that you could combine and that you could partake in with any other major on campus, including multiple majors like people on this panel as well. In addition to the set of classes, it's also kind of a sense of an extracurricular involvement as well, knowing that you're interested in the pre-health track and so potentially entering a health profession. That does not mean you have to be a doctor. Again, that could be physical therapy school, that could be nursing. There are so many different options. But so generally, a lot of students pursuing that track will be involved in some form of research or clinical experience, like Katherine and myself at Lurie. So a lot of different options, and we are happy to answer any further questions that you have on that, but that's kind of an overview that it's generally just a set of classes and perhaps some extracurricular engagements that you could do that would set you up for a whole host of options after graduation.
Great, thanks, Elizabeth. Something else I love to highlight that she really did a great job touching on is, assuming that most people watching right now are in high school or who knows, maybe even middle school, you don't need to come to college knowing you're going to be a doctor, and you don't need to stick to that path the whole way, and especially not at Northwestern, given the flexible curriculum that we have that we'll certainly touch on. So the first question that came in is right up your alley, Katherine. Someone asked, what kind of research do you do in the Neuro and Psych Lab? And I know you have experience in that, so can you talk a bit about it?
Yeah, definitely. I can also talk briefly about my experience into getting into a lab at Northwestern. I know that that's important for a lot of pre-meds, and a lot of just students in general want to do research when they come to college. And Northwestern provides so many opportunities for that because we are a research institution. Almost every professor is doing research. So that means whether you're taking English classes or political science classes or more pre-med chemistry, biology classes, those professors are doing their own research. So actually in the end of my sophomore year, middle of my sophomore year, I kind of figured out that I wanted to do some research. So I did some research. I emailed different professors that I liked their labs. And so, I ended up in this Neuro Psych Lab. And basically what I do, I've done a bunch of different studies as a research assistant, ranging from, we focus on insight. So, those aha moments that you sometimes get when you're trying to do problem solving. So we're taking that psych element of how do people solve problems and making it more neuroscience-y by using things like doing a sleep study and using an EEG to figure out what are the brain waves going on when those aha moments happen in your sleep, or different kind of applications with what is your brain doing when you go into incubation and when you mull over a problem you're kind of stuck on and you then solve it. And so that's specifically what I'm doing. And as a research assistant, I'm kind of helping the graduate students project. So I did a really cool sleep study where I actually slept overnight in the lab and would get up in the middle of the night and help to code the EEG brain waves that were going on, which was a really cool experiment. And then I ended up also doing, I know Elizabeth said she did this too, an undergraduate research grant. So Northwestern gives away $3.5 million every year to undergraduates to do research. So I spent a summer working on my own independent project in my lab, and I got paid to do it. And that independent project I did was with exercise and how problem solving and the aha moment and incubation works when you exercise. So I don't know if I talked too much, but that's basically what I do and a little bit about research at Northwestern.
Thanks, Katherine. Never too much. It's great to hear how excited you are when talking about this. So we did get a basic stat question that I can quickly answer. So someone asked approximately what percentage of Northwestern students get into medical school the first year they apply. So 98% of seniors graduating with a 3.8 GPA or above are admitted to medical school. And then 70% of seniors graduating with a 3.0 GPA or above are admitted to medical school. So those are the most recent stats. Keep in mind the national average to simply get into medical school is 40%. So our Northwestern students statistically are doing pretty well. So moving on there, Jack, we have a question about how did you get connected with pre-health academic and extracurricular opportunities at Northwestern? And maybe too, since you have a really unique background, touch on the things that aren't related to pre-med necessarily that you're also involved in.
Totally. So to start out with how I got into the pre-med track and whatnot. So I wasn't really sure that I was going to do pre-med. I thought I came in, well, as a theater major and a biological sciences major, and I thought I wanted to do strictly like academic research. But basically I attended, so when you get on campus, there's this big thing, of course it's all online now, but hopefully when you all apply and get here, maybe you'll be on campus, but it's called Wildcat Welcome, and basically it gives you a whole orientation and a huge introduction to life here at Northwestern. So the pre-health offices were holding a little seminar where they talk about being pre-med at Northwestern and sort of what career paths can be laid out, just like Elizabeth mentioned earlier. So basically I went to that, and then from there you take in all the information. They tell you stats very similar to what you're hearing here, and then you sign up for a pre-med advisor, and essentially it's as simple as that. That's how you get connected with your pre-med advisor. You're assigned one, and I meet with my advisor quarterly just to talk about like scheduling and like what stuff I need to be doing from quarter to quarter, how's my like research resume versus my clinical resume like looking, and all types of stuff like that. So that's how I got connected with the pre-health department. It was just through like a little seminar. And then a similar concept applies to all extracurricular opportunities here. So I'm sure at many of your high schools or wherever you may be coming from, they have tons of club fairs and stuff like that. Well, they have the exact same thing here. So right at the start of the school year, there's a gigantic club fair filled with essentially every student group on campus. We have over 500 student groups here, so there's more growing every single day. So basically I got connected with my theater board at that group. I'm part of an experimental theater board, and we put on a show every single quarter. But I can assure you that like there are just an incredible amounts of extracurricular resources at your disposal, and so many opportunities not only to like really learn and hone skills that like you wouldn't really learn in your science. I'm the production manager of my theater board, so I think that I have gotten a lot of skills of like organizing a room and being able to lead a room and like direct other people around, and have like I feel very comfortable in like sort of like high stress environments. So naturally I'll be talking about that on my application, and yeah, there are tons of opportunities to get involved extracurricularly as well as academically.
Fantastic, thank you. So Vivica, can you talk about how easy it is to just simply get research opportunities on campus, and either if that's through an advisor or going to the office, just how does that process work?
Yeah, I think I came into Northwestern not really familiar with research. It wasn't common, like in my high school, I did not have any research experience before college. And by the end of my first year, I've already completed a research project through the Undergraduate Research Assistant Program, or URAP for short. And that, I think like programs like that are an example of how Northwestern, regardless of your research experience, whether you've been doing it for all 4 years of high school or you've never been in a lab before, Northwestern can guide you through the process. So I went through the Undergraduate Research Assistant Program because I had no experience. And that was a really valuable experience for me because I worked with a social policy professor, and what I studied was like the perceptions and punishments of Black women and girls in the United States. So even though it wasn't directly related to my major, I was able to work on that project and gain a lot of like professional experiences and learn what is research. And the professor was aware I had like limited knowledge of research, so she could kind of hold my hand and guide me through that, which is so valuable during your first year in college and as someone that wants to continue in research. So it's super easy. I mean, I went through a structured program, but I know other students on campus that literally just, hey, that looks kind of cool, emailed the professor, set up an interview, and they were in. It's so easy to get involved because there's so many opportunities to get involved at Northwestern.
Love it. And hopefully you're all kind of picking up on how all of our panelists have talked about research, but it's from so many different angles and different dimensions that, again, as you go through your college search process, think broadly and open about pre-health, and don't worry about getting too narrow into pre-med or stem cells or things like that. So we have gotten a lot of questions about specific programs at Northwestern, one being our Northwestern Pre-Medical Scholars Program that I'd love for Elizabeth to touch on a bit more.
Yeah, so our Northwestern Pre-Medical Scholars Program, also known as NUPSP, is a really cool direct admit program. And so that's something you would apply to as an upperclassman at Northwestern, generally reserved for students who have a 3.7 science and overall GPA or higher during their time at Northwestern. And each year, about 6 to 8 students will be admitted to that program. If you are admitted to that program, that means that you do not have to take the MCAT, which is a very major perk of doing so, because I think everyone on this panel, even those who haven't done it yet, and everyone nationwide can all concur that the MCAT is like not the most fun thing that anyone has ever had to do in their lives. But so that's NUPSP. There's a lot of information about it online, but overall is a really great program for students who have done really well and been really successful, especially early on at Northwestern, and who are very committed to going to Feinberg and having that opportunity to directly attend that without having to apply to other medical schools. I will also take this moment to note that I'm sure many of you have questions about HPME, or our honors program in medical education, which was formerly an 8-year direct admit program that prospective high school students could apply to with admissions to Feinberg after graduating from Northwestern as an undergrad. That program will not be accepting applications this year. So should you have any questions about that further, that was a decision made by Feinberg Admissions. So feel free to reach out to them or look through their website for more information on that.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So next I want to talk about how, we keep throwing out these terms like the pre-med track, this program, that program. But Northwestern's all about flexibility and that interdisciplinary nature and giving everyone time to figure out what's best for them. So with that said, Katherine, why don't you share your story of coming to Northwestern undecided in addressing the question of whether or not you're bound to the pre-health track or the pre-med track, and if you have to hold on to that forever, or if you really have that flexible nature as a Northwestern student.
Yeah, totally. So I came in undecided to the Weinberg School of Arts and Sciences, and I kind of started out my first quarter taking a wide spread of classes. I took chemistry, I took econ, I took Spanish, I took my seminar class. Like I was kind of all over the board and ready to just like explore and kind of figure out what I liked. And then very soon after, I started gravitating more towards the sciences. And then I was like, maybe I should do research. And I kind of kept taking chemistry. And then I took a bio class. And then I kind of decided my sophomore year, maybe I'll want to be pre-med. I don't really know what that means. And so like Jack kind of touched on this. I then just like went to the pre-med office and said, hey, like, what does it mean to be pre-med? And they kind of laid out like the coursework and what the like track looks like, which is basically, the track is just basically the set of classes that you need to take that med schools require you to take in order to apply. And so that was kind of my path into figuring out I maybe wanted to be pre-med because I really enjoyed the classes and the science classes that are the track. But basically at the end of my freshman year, I also decided that, I don't know if Weinberg's for me. I want to check out the School of Education and Social Policy. So I actually transferred schools at the end of my freshman year, still completely undecided, undeclared in any major or minor. Picked up this LOC, Learning and Organizational Change major at the end of my freshman year. And then like middle of my sophomore year, I decided I wanted to be global health. And then at the end of my sophomore year, it was psych. And then in the middle of my junior year, it was chemistry. So I've flip-flopped back and forth a lot between what I'm interested in. And Northwestern allows you and provides you with that flexibility to be able to really explore because we're on the quarter system. So semester students on average are taking about 5 classes a semester, which is 10 classes per year. So it's 40 in total. And quarter students, which is like, you're not actually taking 4 quarters because one of them is the summer quarter. So we're taking on average about 4 classes per quarter, which then is being 12 per year and 48 after 4 years. Thus, we're taking on average 8 more classes than the semester student, which really allows you to have that flexibility to try out different things and see what interests you. So I really love the quarter system. It's allowed me to like really be able to learn in lots of different areas and figure out what I want to study. But yeah, just kind of going back to the real question, the pre-med track is something you can jump on and jump off as many times as you want, and it's really nothing binding at all.
Great. And you touched on a lot of things that I think are really helpful for the audience, the virtual audience here at least. The idea that there are 6 undergraduate schools at Northwestern and students apply to one, but will have the opportunity to switch it up if it makes sense in your Northwestern journey, and the quarter system, and that unique element of Northwestern that enables our students to take so many classes, perhaps double major, major minor, triple major is an option, not always the most popular, but doable. And that brings us into the next question about double majoring. So Jack, can you address how difficult it may or may not be to double major knowing that you're on a pre-health route?
Totally. So you and Katherine sort of laid it out perfectly, where Northwestern really makes it easy and prides itself on having like nearly every student, like giving every student the ability to double major. I've seen the craziest combinations. I've seen like McCormick, like mechanical engineers who are also in our Bean School of Music, like they are literally learning conservatory style violin while developing like race cars. It's insane. But all of that comes with the quarter system, so you're able to take more classes. You have far more flexibility. You have something like what I like to call breadth and depth. So you can take as many different classes as you want, but then you can also like dive in and take extra classes in a specific area if you want. But in regards to double majoring, my experience is that it has been incredibly manageable, and that really your advisors are there to help you. Most of the advisors are trained in multiple of like the requirements for different fields. So for instance, my theater advisor is familiar with the pre-med track, so therefore they can provide me like with recommendations for which classes I can like sort of fit in between my pre-med classes, and vice versa for my pre-med advisor. So they really make it easy in that regard. And then as far as like the day-to-day, like the workload that you're going to receive, obviously it's going to vary depending on what your double majors are. But for me personally, it really helps to like compartmentalize. So like it's crazy going from orgo to where I'm like writing down everything that the teacher puts up on the board, to acting where I practice breathing for about 5 minutes, or jumping from like my musical composition class into my physiology class. But being able to sort of bounce back in between all those different fields and use those different parts of your brain from day to day really helps me feel like I'm a lot more well-rounded, and it really makes my day just feel so much more like full. So I guess to officially answer the question, it's super easy to double major, and it makes at least my day feel a lot better, and I feel better about myself.
Love that. It's great to hear how you're able to pursue all the different areas you love and have a nice variety in what's being brought to you in the classroom on an average day. So I just want to kind of close the loop a bit on all things kind of quarter system and scheduling and majoring. So Vivica, can you just talk about the general experience with the quarter system? Does it feel more rigorous because it's shorter amount of time than a semester system, or is it pretty manageable?
Yeah, so I think similar to what Katherine was saying with like the quarter system, I love it because it allows you to explore so much. And I think a lot of Northwestern students will agree that it does move very quickly. Like 10 weeks will fly by a lot quicker than you think. However, there are a lot of benefits with that. I think I also came in undecided and I jumped around a lot with what I wanted to take. And I love how I can pack my schedule with like so many different options each year. And by the end of the year, I'm like, wow, I've taken so many classes thanks to the quarter system. And another one of the benefits is that you can take anywhere from like 3 to 5 classes, really. So you can really pack in that quarter however much like you want and based on what classes you're taking. And that's a benefit that I think like people don't always consider. So I think overall the quarter system, it's for sure different and it will take like a little bit of adjustment just because it is very quick. But in the long run, it's so beneficial. And I really can't say enough like great things about it. I'm so happy I decided to go to a quarter system school because for someone that like me, that's like a little indecisive and wants to explore so much in these next 4 years, the quarter system allows you to do that. And I feel like there's a lot more flexibility there than other semester long schools. So yeah, I totally say like the intensity is there, but there's also a lot of fun there and a lot of exploration opportunities there.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Even in the graduate schools, it's still the quarter system, and it really enables you to take so many classes and explore those interests. So moving on, let's hop back to research opportunities for a little bit. Elizabeth, can you talk a bit about the opportunities that undergrads might have at Feinberg, which for you who may not know, that is Northwestern's medical school, which is in downtown Chicago?
Yeah, definitely. So we touched quite a bit on research earlier, but all of us have done research in Evanston. I actually did not. I did research. I'm from New York City, and I went back home and did clinical research for 2 summers at the Hospital for Special Surgery. But there are quite a few different research labs at Feinberg, obviously, given that it is our medical school. And so I do have a lot of friends who've done research at Feinberg. We have an inter-campus shuttle that takes you from our Evanston campus, where all of your undergraduate classes are housed, to our downtown campuses, which is where Feinberg, our Pritzker School of Law, other graduate programs are held, which is also right next to Lurie, where Katherine and I volunteer. So I'm sure Katherine also took the inter-campus shuttle like I did. Very convenient, all Northwestern students. But so I think kind of like a big difference somehow or partially between Evanston and Feinberg labs is just like sometimes the content of what they're researching. So sometimes it can be like more tangibly medically like applicable at Feinberg and less abstract isn't the right word, but more like they're researching a certain heart intervention or outcomes of a procedure similar to what I did at the Hospital for Special Surgery. But kind of the big difference, honestly, is the commute. It's about, depending on what time of day, 30 minutes to an hour to get downtown and back. So that could potentially be another 2 hours out of your day. So if you have really large chunks, like let's say somehow you don't have class on a Tuesday and you're going to go downtown all day, totally worth it. But for me, that was always just a little bit overwhelming, seeing I was already busy and dealing with a few different student organizations that I was a part of. But there are definitely tons of opportunities to get involved at Feinberg. I know many students who did do so. And then it also with Feinberg, there are a lot of different volunteer opportunities as well. So you can volunteer at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Feinberg itself doesn't have as many like volunteer opportunities because it is a medical school. So it's not like a clinical center. That would be Northwestern Memorial Hospital. So kind of a slight differentiation there. There's also the Shirley Ryan Rehabilitation Institute downtown as well that a lot of people volunteer at. So abundant opportunities, but I will say you don't have to go downtown and have to go to Feinberg to get either research or clinical opportunities. There are a lot of ways to accomplish that in Evanston as well, like through Symphony of Evanston, through the Evanston Hospital, which is part of like the North Shore healthcare system. So overall, a lot of ways to get involved, and you don't have to go downtown if you don't want to, but that is a really great option that Northwestern affords students.
Awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth. So I love how we're kind of getting at the idea of what are you doing when you're not in the classroom, in the greater culture and community of Northwestern. Knowing that, Katherine, can you talk a bit about what's it like with your peers at Northwestern in terms of, is it really competitive at Northwestern when you're on that pre-med track, or do you find kind of this sense of camaraderie among perhaps your other panelists or other students you know at Northwestern who have similar academic interests as you?
Yeah, that's a great question and something I definitely thought about and was worried about before coming to Northwestern. But I have not felt that it's competitive at all. I kind of like to say that every student is very high achieving. So everyone internally has high personal standards. But I've never been in a class where the teacher has said, okay, only 10 students can get an A. And then that makes it a competitive environment because only a certain number can get that grade that you might want. I've actually found that a lot of times professors encourage you to work with other people in the class. And then you form little communities through going to office hours or whatnot. I actually made a couple of my best friends through my pre-med classes, kind of sitting next to them freshman fall and then continuing to take my pre-med classes with them. And I've always found that you're able to ask a peer like, hey, what was that professor saying about this question? Or do you know what the homework is? Or hey, want to study for a test tomorrow together? I really think that that's one of the things that's actually gotten me through the pre-med track because it is rigorous, is studying with peers and going to the library together and staying up late and studying together and learning from each other. So I personally have felt that it's a lot more collaborative and that, again, like everyone's personally wanting to achieve, but it doesn't conflict with like, I can do as well as I want to do and so can my best friend. And we can work together to both achieve that. So yeah, that's kind of been my experience at Northwestern.
What a lovely message. So to keep on with that, the idea that we're all in this together when we're pre-health at Northwestern, Jack, can you touch on those pre-health extracurriculars? I know the one you brought up in your introduction is probably very interesting to some of our viewers, in addition to any others that you're familiar with.
Mm-hmm. So first I'll talk about the one that I'm involved in. So it's not specifically pre-health, but it's not specifically pre-med, but it has a lot of health applications. So last summer I was part of Northwestern's iGEM team, which stands for Internationally Genetically Engineered Machines. And essentially, it's a giant competition that has teams from all across the world that you can sort of think of it as a robotics competition, but instead of engineering robots, you're engineering life. You're engineering typically cells. There's nothing really greater than that. But there are tons of different applications. So specifically my team, we developed a strain of E. coli that was sensitive to UV light in the way that it fluoresced different levels of green in response to the amount of damage that it was receiving from the UV light. So basically we had to design like a genetic circuit as well as come up with sort of a encasement for the E. coli and then the different conditions, testing like, oh, if we expose it to this much UV light, how much will it fluoresce and whatnot. But it really emphasized like team building skills. It was a team of 5 people. And there was it was so multifaceted in its applications. So there were even beyond our specific applications, there were other, like someone engineered a type of immune cell to attack cancer cells, to develop antibodies to attack cancer cells. There are all different types of projects that we saw at the final convention in Boston. And Northwestern paid for the entire experience. They paid for all of our research, all of our flights there, our hotels there. And they even paid for our living expenses over the summer. So there are various different grants that you can apply for. Either it's undergraduate research grants, where you do your own specific research project, or if you're part of an unpaid internship, which is technically the category that this would be under, you can apply for a different grant that would provide you living expenses for that summer or something like that. So that was a really great experience and a great great organization to be a part of, because now I will play a part in mentoring other people who will take place in the competitions in the years to come. which is really amazing. Now, other than that specific experience, I'm aware that there are several different clubs. There's a biomedical engineering club, and then there's also a pre-med / pre-health Greek organization. Now, it's not affiliated with sort of the social Greek organizations that you're typically familiar with, but it's a great network. I'm not a part of it personally, but I know many people who are, and they've met tons of people. It connects you with other students who can give you insights into where to get good clinical hours, where to volunteer to be like an EMT or something like that, and then also connects you with like a global network because it is or not a global, a national network of pre-health or like health workers. So perhaps like a doctor in your hometown or even on Northwestern's campus was part of the same organization. They might be willing to give you some clinical hours, allow you to shadow them. So yeah, there are tons of pre-health directly. You can spin almost any experience here into a pre-health experience.
That's totally true. I mean, think about things at Northwestern like our innovation spaces. So those are spaces to kind of pursue your entrepreneurial interests. We have lots of videos on our YouTube channel about that. But to be involved in something like that, you don't have to be studying entrepreneurship or something along business. You absolutely could be a STEM student or on that general pre-health track. So like I just said, that general pre-health track, we're getting a lot of questions about what courses do I take as a pre-health student? I think it'd be helpful if we all take a step back for a second and realize that pre-health is kind of that greater umbrella of all the different tracks. So 3 of our panelists are pre-med, and we have Vivica, who is pre-public health. And there's a really helpful video on our YouTube page and website, if you kind of just Google Northwestern pre-health, that shows all those different pre-tracks. With that said, Vivica, can you touch on some of those maybe common classes, though, within all of the pre-health tracks? And maybe, too, how you decided to be pre-public health, given that we've had a lot of pre-med questions.
Yeah, of course. I get this question a lot. I actually came to Northwestern pre-med. My first fall quarter freshman year, I was thinking like, okay, I think I want to be pre-med because I really want to help people, kind of that side of things. And so I started by taking general chemistry, which a lot of people are familiar with that as a typical pre-med course. And I hadn't taken chemistry since my sophomore year of high school. And my high school was kind of basic with what we covered. So I was definitely scared about can I handle the rigor of a Northwestern general chemistry course? And one of the best things I found out about were how many supports there are, especially for pre-health classes, because so many students at Northwestern are taking them. So I think the professors and academic advising, they make sure there's a lot of help in place in case you do struggle. So I think about I joined a peer guided study group, which is basically an older student that is has a group of students that are in the class, and you meet once a week to go over recap the topics and just go over any questions that you have. And I did that for all of my quarters of general chemistry, and it was a huge support for me. I also can think about going to health professions advising and asking them questions about okay, what courses do I need to take? And they can be more explicit about it. Some of those other courses might be statistics as well, especially as someone that's pre-public health. That's one of those that I have to take. And like I said, there's so much help on campus, even just Katherine mentioned, there's not this competitive nature where we can't support each other. A lot of people in my friend group I met through my pre-med, pre-health courses, and we helped each other out. And that's how we kind of grew our friendships and our grades at the same time. So I think that's a really beautiful thing. But getting into pre-public health specifically for me, so like I said, I started pre-med, but then I also volunteered with Peer Health Exchange, and I realized that maybe I didn't want to get into medicine at a patient level, but I definitely like the organizational population level. So especially with my research into Black women and girls, and just learning the social determinants of health in my intro global health course, I kind of realized okay, I can be in healthcare even if it's not a traditional doctor setting, which is something that someone had not told me before college. I didn't realize all these different people that really make our healthcare system run. And I realized that public health would fit me better than being a doctor or a nurse specifically. So I think finding your little aspects and taking advantage of, like, I talked to my Weinberg advisor, career advising, health professions advising. It's never too soon to start talking to these people and just getting out there what you like. I remember sitting with my health professions advisor and saying, like, I love peer health exchange. I love that I get to teach students about these things. And he's like, have you ever heard of like public health and like what a career in that could look like? And I was like, no, no one has ever told me about this. So really taking advantage of your resources on campus, like advisors, to figure out what you might want to be into, because there's so much to explore at Northwestern.
I keep nodding my head. I love how we're coming to the end here, and you really touched on the point that we started with, which is that it's awesome to already have an idea of what you're all interested in right now, but you don't have to know exactly what it is. College is all about exploring, and better yet, a school like Northwestern has so many fantastic resources and programs to help you with that exploration process. With that said, we're coming to the end. So I would love to just go around and talk about why you all chose Northwestern. And if it has to do with the pre-health, talk about why pre-health at Northwestern, about a minute or so. So why don't you start, Elizabeth?
Yeah, happy to. So Katherine actually kind of touched on this earlier. My why Northwestern is really the people. I also made a bunch of my best friends being pre-med at Northwestern. General chemistry was like not super easy for me, and having them there to help me get through it was incredibly successful. And overall, I felt like at Northwestern, I had a really supportive community backing me along the way. I think it's really important when you're looking at colleges to not only like look at the programs and making sure they have the classes you're interested in, kind of all of the things that there are on paper, but think about the other things. Think about like where you would want to be on a really bad day, and think about where you feel like you would have an uplifting community that would kind of help to turn your frown upside down. I know it's like super cheesy, but truly, I think it's important to think about like, I could probably have been happy at most places, but like, where are you going to be able to like come out of that and feel like really loved and cared for, not only by your friends and by the people, but by professors, by advisors, by just like overall the kind of feeling in the community of being there for you. And so having that feeling and getting that sense is really why I chose Northwestern and why I loved my 4 years there. Katherine, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so I'll keep it super short and sweet. I know we're running out of time. So I said I was from Evanston, or I am from Evanston. So I actually initially wanted to go very far away from home, but Northwestern had every single thing I wanted to offer and has really fulfilled that. And one of the biggest things is, as I don't know if you can tell, I'm passionate about tons of different things. And the quarter system allowed me to take advantage of all my different passions and really explore that. So Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, my like main Northwestern, why Northwestern is the same as Catherine's. It just fosters interdisciplinarity like so well, but also like I really believe Northwestern wants you to enjoy your undergraduate experience and enjoy it beyond just the academics of it. It really creates an environment where you create friends that will last a lifetime, and I will always cherish my time here.
Yeah, I think for me, same as everyone else on this panel, but besides like the stunning campus that we get to live on these 4 years, I also think a big thing is like the quarter system and that exploration and the people. There's so many clubs and organizations and professors and other students that you'll meet that are into the same things as you. And that makes you feel like you belong, which is so, so, so important. There's identity groups. There's so much here that has made Northwestern feel like home for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us this evening. Like I said, any questions that you have that weren't answered, be sure to check out our website for all these other resources to learn more about Northwestern. Follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, all things virtual. We hope everyone is doing okay, staying safe, healthy, happy, and we hope to see you another time soon. Thank you. Bye.